There's this idea that to truly get good at something, to master it, you have to sacrifice something, if not everything, in the process. Like this romanticized notion of the, eccentric genius who locks himself away to work on something for weeks and months on end just to emerge with this masterpiece out of nowhere. I think it largely ties in with our notion of hard work and that everything must be. If something's not been painful to achieve, then it's not truly an achievement. And I used to buy into this idea very much back in my late teens, all the way through to my mid to late 20s. I would just study, work, while other people my age were out partying, socializing, making friends. I was often just stuck in my room at home, and because of that I poured so much energy into my technical competence when it came to drawing. But I didn't really have my own ideas per se. It was all kind of like a regurgitated version of other media I consumed. Things started to change in my late 20s. I decided it was time I actually made some gay friends. And then slowly I got more and more into the gay scene. I think my first big party was Brighton Pride 2019. That kind of opened my eyes up to a lot of things that the gay world had to offer. Up until that point, the idea of like being in a really busy, noisy, chaotic area was just like not my cup of tea at all. But then I started to realize that it was for me and that my world up until that point had been so small. To truly be creative, you have to have a life, you have to have something to say. There's no point practicing to sing if you don't have a song to sing. So to show you just what I mean, I'm going to take you on a trip with me and Elvis. We went to Manchester last December and had an amazing time. We went to Homobloc, which is this big queer party, and after that I'm going to bring it back around to the creativity aspect. I'm going to do a drawing which is inspired by what I've seen on nights out, nothing too crazy, and sort of channel my lived experiences into my art, which is something I never used to do, but now I do very much, and it's giving me a sense of creative purpose. So let's get started and head to Manchester. Look at her. She's ready for a good time.
Hey,
Manchester is not ready.
I don't think they are. But you know what? We're gonna bring it. We're gonna wake it up.
Yes, bitch. A few hours later, we were in Manchester. We were actually staying there for 2 nights. So on night 1, we decided to go and check out the gay village and see what it had to offer. The standout place was definitely a place called Via, this like big pub, I guess you'd call it. It's like really sprawling with lots of different levels and stuff like that. It's really fun to explore. It was absolutely packed. Some drag shows and lots of music and stuff. It was a really good time. That would be my recommendation for sure. We managed to not go too crazy, so got some sleep, had a nice breakfast at the hotel, which was desperately needed, and after that we were getting ourselves ready for the big party. Now, I wasn't just going to be partying with Elvis tonight, but Diana. Now, for those of you who don't know, Diana is an international party sensation. You can see her everywhere, from New York to Berlin to London. Basically, when Elvis dons this white wig, that's when chaos breaks loose. And I was going to get in on the fun too, with my own cute little bob. I'm calling myself Daisy here, so it's Daisy and Diana. This really goes back to what I was saying about, not caring what people think about you and just having a good time, enjoying the moment. Yeah, that's what this weekend is all about, so we were ready. After more hours than I care to count, we were both ready to go, so we set off. As you can see, Diana is looking immaculate, a true lady, doing the people's princess proud there. One of my favourite parts about a new party is like going around the venue, exploring, finding all the different areas, seeing what the different vibes are. So we had a good walk around when we got there to scout everything out. You can see it's really busy, so many people there, so you have to be. It takes logistics to make sure you can keep track of one another in a place like this, because if you lose someone, it is going to be really hard to find them again. But having said that, Diana has a way of turning up just when you need her. So I want to take a moment just to talk about parties in general. I think the footage speaks for itself here. We're having a fantastic time here. A good party to me is like almost a place outside of reality. I'm someone who in my day-to-day, like I love my routine, I love planning out things. So a party is just like a really chaotic experience, but in the best possible way, because you can't plan for what's going to happen there, and it's exciting. And I felt that's really kind of helped balance out that part of my personality to sort of embrace just going with the flow, which is exactly what I was doing here with Diana. So many of us live like predictable lives where we tread the same path repeatedly, and I feel, and the party is just a great time to go off that path and try something new. You never know who you'll meet and what kind of experiences you'll have. I've met so many interesting people on nights out, people I would never meet in my normal life. And there's just a mix. There's like people of all different income brackets, you know, different job types. You know, it's like, when was the last time you could meet so many different people from different backgrounds? Usually at school, really. After that, it feels like our lives just get like more and more hemmed in, more narrow. Our group of people smaller and smaller and more kind of like similar to ourselves. So something like this is a time to just completely break those barriers down and mingle and experience humanity in its full spectrum of craziness. There was also a little arts and crafts area, which I thought was fantastic, where people were selling their wares, having small stalls and stuff like that. So there was like crochet clothes, all sorts of kind of like doodads and weird colourful things. It's really fun to look at, and obviously inspiring for me as a aspiring creator wanting to put my artwork out there. I'm not sure this would be the right venue for me to be selling like original artwork in, but you know, maybe like merchandise or something like that. I can definitely see that working. So you never know, maybe you'll see me at one of these events one day, sat behind my stall with God knows what. I sometimes like to pause for a moment at a party like this and take it all in. Over there, I've got Diana with another friend of ours, and she's leading him around on a leash, and it's just completely normal. No one bats an eye, it's just part of the background. We have all these restrictions that we put on ourselves that we don't even realize, just to conform to, you know, whatever is expected of us. And then when you just take that off, it's like, wow, look, look what we're capable of. Look at the amazing, freaky, fabulous stuff we can do. You know, thinking back on it now, it really is in places like this where I've kind of made some self-discoveries, I guess. It's where, you know, like starting my own art business, that came to me during a rave, as I recall. I don't know, you just tend to think outside of what your normal limitations are, and you just kind of see, oh, you know, there's all these, like I just said, you know, there's all these barriers I put up in my mind which don't need to be there. And you feel liberated and willing to take on ideas and projects that you might be scared to do otherwise. You're just like, fuck it, I only live once, so I'm going to give it my best shot. In that way, I really see it as a character building exercise. You know, these sorts of places will challenge you and make you have to adapt. You'll come out the other end a slightly different person, someone who perhaps isn't overwhelmed as easily, who is a bit more relaxed. At least that's been my experience, you know. I'm not as fazed by things, I'm not so kind of disturbed by the idea of not being in control of a situation and knowing exactly what I'm going to do and, you know, having an itinerary, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, I found it very, as I said, liberating, for sure. Gotta have a quick shout out to Slater here. This is my second time seeing her live. I saw her early in the year at Brighton Pride, which is a very similar event. So if you're liking the look of what you're seeing here, Brighton Pride is like the daytime version of this, basically. But yeah, Slater's always very supportive of the gays and the dolls, so, you know, we love her for that. Back over at the other side of the venue, it was more of a house music disco vibe, which was fantastic. I'd say we spent most of the night here. You know, the live performers were great, the music, it was all just top notch. The main act of the night was the Sugar Babes. The crowd was fucking massive. We managed to get up high, which was so good. I got a really good view. And you really get a good idea of the sense of scale of this event. It was just huge. The rest of the night was more of the same, just more dancing, meeting new people, hanging out with Diana, having a blast, basically. If I could have seen myself now, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. You know, I've done a complete 180 in some respects, and I feel so much richer for it. And bear in mind, I'm a whole 35 years old, so it's never too late if you want to get started. You know, there's people of all ages here too, and you know, as queer people, many of us have small families or maybe no families at all. So this is a real place of community where people, all different life experiences come together. So you're bound to find your group of people somewhere. Sometimes I think the world would be such a better place if partying like this was mandatory every so often for people. You know, people take themselves so seriously and are so wrapped up in their insecurities. And if more people could experience this, then I think we would all be a lot more relaxed, a lot more accepting of one another, and just have better lives generally. Anyway, I've said my piece, advocating for partying at any and every age. Well, maybe not every age. And that was Homobloc. It flew by, it was a whirlwind, as was Diana. I had such a great time, would definitely go again, and recommend it if you're in the UK, Manchester, or even further afield. I think you should definitely check it out. Back in London.
We made it with smiles.
We made it.
Can you imagine? It's so fresh.
So fresh, never been fresher.
Never.
Okay, time to get on with some drawing now. As I was saying before, this is going to be inspired by my nights out, specifically like the lights in nightclubs, that sort of thing. There's like intense coloured lights. I find it really interesting when I'm out, just seeing how quickly the lights change. You know, there's like different colours, etc., flashing all over, and it transforms like constantly. It means there's this constant transformation of people happening. You know, as you look at someone in the space of 5 seconds, you might have like 5 or 10 different images of them as lights hit them from different directions. And obviously it's very visually stimulating, and it creates this very particular feeling that I associate with nightclubs. Now, obviously I'm working with a still image here, so I can only capture one particular moment. Though, having said that, I think for a future series of images, I'd like to do like maybe a series of 3, capturing exactly the same figure / pose, but in 3 different lighting scenarios. I think that would be fun. But yeah, for now I'm just working with one image, so I'm trying to get a sense of movement in this one with lots of lines kind of like swishing around to kind of like indicate where his limbs or body might have been like just a few milliseconds earlier. That's sort of what I was trying to go for. So yeah, just using soft pastels for this one. It's like a super easy medium to work with, really simple. Just a collection of like, how many colors have I got there? Like, I was only using really like 3 or 4 colors throughout all of this, which, you know, is nice. It just keeps it nice and simple. I spent a little bit of time online looking for different reference images. I wanted to find a pose which really could be moving, you know, there's quite a lot of static images out there where the person is clearly not moving, but with this one I feel like he could easily be mid-dance or something like that, so it seemed like a really good one. This is the reference on screen now that I'm using. Yeah, so just following along with this. It's a very simple process with the pastels. I just lay them up, then I use a special fixative to keep them in place. And it also then allows me to work in thicker and put more pastel on top once I've used the fixative to really kind of get the colours really deep and as intense as possible. Something else I like about soft pastels is you can really get some nice edge variation with them. And for the non-artists, what I mean with that is I can have areas which are defined, so you can easily separate the figure from the background, for example, and then I can also have other areas which are much more blended, so it's almost like the figure is kind of disappearing into the background, which I really like, because again, with the party lights and stuff like that, there's such extremes of dark and light that the figure can always kind of like melt into the background. Gives a very kind of like fluid feeling, and I think soft pastels are great for getting this sort of thing. I also really like working with my fingers, just like rubbing them in. It feels very responsive because obviously I'm directly touching the paper, so it's a very tactile medium, so I find it really fun to work with. As you can see, I'm also using an eraser to kind of like chip away at certain parts, rearrange bits, and also get some sharper areas, and then blending it in with my finger to make it a bit soft in other areas. And here is the finished drawing. I'm happy with how it turned out. It was really, I don't know, it just really flowed, this one. Like, it wasn't difficult. It just came out how I wanted it to, which is nice, because some drawings are much more difficult than others, and this one was a nice, easy one. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and hope you've enjoyed today's video from me. I really wanted to talk about kind of like the uneasy tension at times between focusing on work and productivity and getting good at something versus living life, and you know, the balance between those things. And it was a balance that was really off in my life before, which I've tried to rectify, and I feel it's really helped just make me a happier person, a more well-rounded person, and also has helped my creativity also. So I think there's a lot to be said for just living life as well, you know, rather than just head down and always just grinding away. And as always, I'm interested to hear what you've got to say. If you've been partying before, how's that affected your life? In a positive way? Hopefully in a positive way. I know it's not the case for everyone, but I think it really does have the power to be a positive thing if done responsibly. Or maybe you've not partied before and are curious about it. Hopefully my video is kind of giving you a little peek into what things are like and how much fun it can be. Anyway, that's all from me for now. Until next time.